Welcome to Memories for the People. I'm George Farrar, and I'm pleased today to bring you a History USA special, Our Oval Office. The Oval Office, the office of the Presidency of the United States of America. I'll be looking at the presidencies and the Oval Office from William Howard Taft up to Donald Trump. It's important to remember that what we know of about the Oval Office is from the 20th century and the 21st century. Before then, the president's offices were in the executive mansion in the White House. In 1902, President Theodore Roosevelt, with a large family and with a growing country to administer, decided to have constructed the West Wing, and it would house the president's offices. Now we see the current West Wing looking towards the bay windows of the president's Oval Office. So this is what we know of generally today when we think of the Oval Office and the West Wing. And remember, I think why we remember the Oval Office and why speeches are given from the Oval Office and why there's so much history there is it's the crossroads, the corridors of power, the crossroads of power and influence in the United States of America as the president meets with people and makes decisions. And whenever we change presidents over the years, things change inside the Oval Office, of course, as with any office, when things change. On our show today, I'll not only be talking about the interior design, of which there's a lot that will change throughout the different presidencies, but I'll be talking about the unique moments of these presidencies, and I'll be talking about the people that visited and all the different things that happened throughout the years. Now, I also want to tell you about the HMS Resolute desk. It was gifted to the United States of America by British monarch Queen Victoria in 1880 to President Rutherford B. Hayes, and we'll be seeing the HMS Resolute desk throughout the years. I'm going to be excited to talk about it with you. But first, we have to take a look at the West Wing as it was first constructed in the early 1900s by President Theodore Roosevelt. A second West Wing that we know of today was constructed in 1934. Now, the Oval Office, the first Oval Office, and the first president to occupy it was William Howard Taft. The first Oval Office was more centered in the building, further away from the residence. And we see here in this illustration that it was green, that there was green wall covering. Isn't that interesting? Chandeliers, too, if you notice. And we're already seeing, of course, from the beginning, the unique curtain cover design along the bay windows. And here we see William Howard Taft, the first occupant of the first Oval Office. He was notable in that he was the first president and only president to ever serve on the Supreme Court, and he served as Chief Justice on the Supreme Court after he was president. He was replaced by President Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat. And here we see, as we had seen with Taft prior, a gathering of people surrounding the president. Here we see President Wilson in the Oval Office looks like signing a bill. And we have, the notable people around them. Now, one thing to keep in mind was I wasn't able to actually get a picture of President Warren Harding in the Oval Office, but I see recognition of his death in 1923 with a black ribbon at his desk at in the Oval Office. And here we have his successor, Calvin Coolidge, and we'll get a chance to see his office, the Oval Office, in 1927. So this is what it looked like in 1927, keeping in mind that this is not going to be the Oval Office we know of starting in the 1930s onward, because in 1929, on Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1929, there was a fire, and it greatly damaged the West Wing. And so here we have President Herbert Hoover in the Oval Office in the early 1930s, in 1930. What happens is in the 1930s, a new building replaces the old one, and the Oval Office itself is a new room, closer, more towards the residents in the West Wing, in the newly constructed West Wing. So here we have President Franklin Roosevelt in the newly constructed Oval Office, in the newly constructed Oval Office this would be around the mid-1930s. So it's something that's neat, I think, to get a chance to see the changes as they've happened over the years in the Oval Office. So here we see him with a group of people. And here we start to see more decoration around the office, right? If you saw in earlier years plants and there were some bookshelves, things like that, we're getting more of an, starting with Franklin Roosevelt, I think. And notice the donkeys on the desk and the flag but notice the picture frames, and there he is with one of his secretaries. President Franklin Roosevelt would be the longest serving occupant of the Oval Office through the Great Depression and through to almost the end of World War II. And we see this illustration painted by his naval aide that I think is the essence of FDR in the Oval Office during those years. And so after President Roosevelt died in 1945, Vice President Harry Truman becomes president, and you'll see in the Oval Office in these years somewhat a simplicity, each president having their own characteristic style. Now, there have been great moments in American history, and one of them was the announcement by President Harry Truman in 1945 of the surrender of Japanese forces at the end of World War II. And we see the reporters, and remembering too, also at these times, these are changes. There are changes that are going on in media, whereas a lot of people would read newspapers. There was television coming along. There was also radio, of course. So people relied on radio, newspaper, newsreel, and things like that. But along was coming in the 1940s, and by the time General Eisenhower became president in 1953, television was coming along and was becoming of its own. And so increasingly people began the opportunity to see the president from the Oval Office speaking to them, and essentially a lot like you could think of with President Roosevelt and his fireside chats, which were held in the diplomatic reception room when he would broadcast them. You would get a speech from the president, a heart-to-heart speech in a lot of cases from the president. So you saw President Eisenhower before the television cameras. And so this is the Oval Office during the Eisenhower administration. Now, we're now going to look at President John F. Kennedy. You're going to enjoy the upcoming pictures I have coming out of the Kennedy Oval Office. This is my favorite picture here of all the pictures I have of the Oval Office over the years. We have him sitting at the HMS Resolute desk, talking on the phone. And do you see the nautical theme in the background with the different ships? And we have the lit up globe, keeping in mind, right, this is during the Cold War. This is during the race in space, the race to get on the moon, and his challenge for us to get on the moon. So all of these different things happening, civil rights. We have this special moment between President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Robert Kennedy, who was Attorney General. Of course, we know that both of them ultimately will be assassinated. President Kennedy assassinated in 1963, and Robert Kennedy in 1968. And here we see President Kennedy taking a look at, of all things, a Minneapolis magazine about Minneapolis with Minnesota Senator Hubert Humphrey. Hubert Humphrey would ultimately become Vice President of the United States under the Johnson administration. And interesting when we look at perspectives and things, right? This is from August 1963, and we have President Kennedy in the Oval Office, and he's meeting with a group of civil rights leaders, of which Dr. Martin Luther King is one. This was on the same day as his I Have a Dream speech that he gave from the Lincoln Memorial, and President Kennedy received him, as well as other civil rights leaders, in the office that day. And here we get a chance more to see what was it like broadcasting out of the Oval Office onto television. Here we see an NBC, National Broadcasting Company, interview with President Kennedy. This was for Huntley Brinkley. They were a pair of newscasters that did the nightly news for a long time on NBC until 1970. So it's kind of neat because really, if you think about it, it's where the American people, the journalists, the diplomats, the legislators meet the president, whether it's in person or through other means, mostly television, video. These days, of course, social media. But back then, look at what all it took just to get a speech. Now, of course, there's John Kennedy, President's son, playing around. The unique door on the HMS Resolute desk, isn't that neat? And then we have Carolyn Kennedy and Carrie Kennedy. Carolyn was, we all, of course, know as President Kennedy's daughter. They were kids. And it's just unique. You get these unique perspectives. Now, get this. Judy Garland and Danny Kaye meeting the president in the Oval Office. So now we approach something that isn't often talked about in history. And I remember this part of Oval Office history from reading Death of a President by William Manchester. And so in November 1963, President Kennedy and First Lady Jackie Kennedy were in Texas. And so they were on a campaign swing through Texas. And so they decided to change out the carpet and change out the draperies and make a lot of changes to improve the Oval Office. And guess what? With the President and the First Lady out of town, they were able to do that. And it was First Lady Jackie Kennedy's desire to have red carpet. So they put in the red carpet and they put in new draperies. And here you see what President Kennedy's Oval Office would have looked like upon his return from Texas. It's known as Camelot in a lot of ways, because in some ways, I guess we all, of course, know the end of the story, right? Cut short, assassinated in Dallas. And so he never returns to see the new Oval Office, and Lyndon Johnson becomes President of the United States, also from Texas. And for a period of time even, President Johnson worked in the Oval Office with the red carpet. But the HMS Resolute desk was changed out. And so we have what looks to me to be then 1963, 1964, President Johnson in the Oval Office. Things change, right? The offices change. Presidencies are coming and going, right? Some more unexpectedly or tragically than others, right? And so we have President Lyndon Johnson, and it's the height of the Cold War, and Vietnam is coming along, and there's civil rights. There are skirmishes in the streets or demonstrations. Here we see President Lyndon Johnson with Thurgood Marshall, who he appointed to the United States Supreme Court. Thurgood Marshall was the first African-American justice on the Supreme Court in the history of the country. Now, there was a lot going on, and so President Johnson made the Oval Office his nerve center. He loved the telephone, but he also loved television. And we see the three television sets and the teletype machine to the left. And as we look further back, we can see the Oval Office as it was during the Johnson administration. So he had a lot happening. The country was growing, civil rights demonstrations, urban unrest, crime, inflation, Vietnam, and all the issues related to all of it. So by March 1968, he decided he didn't want to run for another term, and he announced it from the Oval Office on television. And so, once again, we have a new president, President Richard Nixon. And here we see him watching television and speaking over the phone. This is when he was communicating with the Apollo astronauts. So this would have been in 1969. Now, by 1969, the Oval Office had been renovated substantially. And so with a new president, a new Oval Office refurbishment, and it's going to be interesting because President Richard Nixon has a unique moment in the White House in his first term. Before we get to that moment, let's look at the newly refurbished Oval Office of 1969. Now, this really, some would say, bizarre moment happens in Nixon's first term. Rock and roll star Elvis Presley, he decides he wants to visit the president. He wants to visit the Bureau of Narcotics. Elvis Presley flies from Los Angeles, California to Washington, D.C., checks into a hotel in Washington, D.C. He visits the deputy director of the Bureau of Narcotics. Just as the drug problem, some would say drug problem, was going on in the United States at the time. More people were doing drugs recreationally, and there was a flood of drugs going into the United States of America. And so there was this anti-drug effort that Elvis Presley wanted to be involved with. He wanted a badge. So after meeting with the deputy director of the Bureau of Narcotics, he shows up at the White House and he meets the president. And so there he is, meeting the president of the United States. Now, this at this time was, somewhat unusual in a sense because you have Richard Nixon, the law and order candidate, with Elvis Presley, who would later die, and we, of course, would find out later about Mr. Presley's drug problem. And so, an interesting thing, right? An interesting moment. But I greatly respected Elvis and greatly enjoyed his music. Now, here we have Bob Hope putting on the Oval Office carpet. Now, all this fun and good times aside, unfortunately for President Nixon, he gets himself in trouble because, and unique to Oval Office history, of course, he records his phone conversations in the Oval Office without people knowing about it, and he gets himself in trouble. It's called the Watergate scandal. He resigns in August of 1974, and so in August 1974, Vice President Gerald Ford, a longtime congressman from Michigan, and later vice president, he becomes president of the United States of America, and in September 1974, pardons him. Pardons Richard Nixon. And incidentally, he was the first president that I knew of as the first president of my lifetime. So, here we have an interesting picture, and it's funny how things turn in history. We have President Gerald Ford with then Secretary of Defense in his first tour as Secretary of Defense. We have Donald Rumsfeld, and we have Dick Cheney, who would later become Secretary of Defense and Vice President. Okay? Now here we have President Ford talking on the phone, and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger standing next to him. Also, Henry Kissinger was National Security Advisor. And here we see President Gerald Ford with Vice President Nelson Rockefeller. Unique time, though, in the 1970s, right? All of this change going on, all of this stuff happening. Now, the HMS Resolute Dust comes back into the Oval Office with the presidency of Jimmy Carter. And I'm a big Jimmy Carter fan, willing to admit it. And I guess, to me, it in some ways makes sense that the HMS Resolute Dust came back to the Oval Office during his presidency. He was a very thoughtful president. Now, he only served one term, and there's a variety of reasons for that. But we can see with the Oval Office, in this particular renovation, with him taking office, a new Oval Office design, a lot more brighter, office, brighter carpet, brighter draperies, so we have him at his desk. And interesting, the ornate globe next to him. You know, of course, though, not everything will work out with the Carter administration. There'll be the primary run by Senator Edward Kennedy against him that will have an impact on his effort to be reelected. And of course, though, he's re-nominated, but throughout from November 1979 until January 20th, 1981, there is the hostage crisis. And here we see in the final hours of his presidency in the Oval Office the effort to get the hostages back. It should be remembered as an effort that President Carter undertook personally, and he worked up to the very last possible minute of his administration to get them home. Ultimately, they were released after he left office on January 20th, 1981, on that very day. But we see in the Oval Office, in the final hours, those last arrangements that were being made to deal with the Iranians, to get the hostages, the embassy workers, back. And you can see in that picture, you can see all of everything that had led to that moment. And here we have the new president, Ronald Reagan of California, in the Oval Office. And here we see it can be done, the sign right there, and you see to the right on the HMS Resolute desk. And I notice with him, when you look at the prior presidents, when you look at Roosevelt, you look at Kennedy, you see a lot more of the items on the desks, the picture frames, the family, and the pictures in the background. And it looks like he wanted to bring plants back into the office as decorative attachment to it. You know, I was really amazed, and I will say this, I was amazed by President Ronald Reagan, while ultimately there were a number of things I didn't agree with him on, even as a kid growing up. And he was the president I really remembered growing up as a kid. He had some unique talents, and that was to communicate with people. And he had a very sunny personality, and I think he fit that Oval Office very well. And even during the Challenger disaster, when from the Oval Office he gave a speech, a eulogy in a sense, to the astronauts. I think that was one of his greatest speeches that he ever gave, that I ever saw. And here he is on the last day of his presidency, January 20th, 1989. Looking back at the Oval Office that now belonged to George H.W. Bush, the first of the Bush presidencies. And now the unique thing about President Bush, and there he is with First Lady Barbara Bush and his dog Millie, was that he worked at the HMS Resolute desk, but then a new desk was installed, and there was a refurbishment of the Oval Office, and this is one of the shorter refurbishments I think I've ever seen. This one with the lighter bluish, grayish coloring and the desk, not as long, but then again, the first Bush presidency was one term anyway, and before we knew it, Bill Clinton, William Jefferson Clinton. He took office on January 20th, 1993. 1993 was the year I graduated high school. And also, I consider Bill Clinton to be one of my favorite presidents of all time. Now, here we see, looks like an opening moment, at least the way the desk looks, to his presidency, which makes perfect sense because he had a lot on his plate. He had a lot that he wanted to get done. The Democrats hadn't been in office for a long time. And so he had a redesigned Oval Office. And here we see him in 1995. And we see the curtains have changed, of course. And we see the carpet is blue. And I'm going to say right here, right now, this is one of my favorite pictures of the Oval Office. I really like this color scheme. I really like the carpet. I really like the curtains. It's just, the whole thing really looked great. And here we have President Clinton meeting with, to his left, Madeleine Albright, Secretary of State, and next to her, William Cohen, Secretary of Defense, and then, of course, military and staff. And we have Chelsea holding Socks the cat. I can't say enough about how great a fun time the Clinton presidency was, except for certain things, right? So, we have taking office in the year 2001, the second Bush. We have George W. Bush of Texas and Laura Bush, the First Lady, in this picture at the HMS Resolute desk. And we see, once again, the curtains have changed. The carpet, now this is one of my favorite carpets. I guess I call it the sunburst from the seal. A really bright, I can't say enough about it when they do a good job with brightening the Oval Office. And here we have President Bush looking out the window on the phone. As you can see, though, right, there's some things that are very traditional. We don't see computers or anything like that. The office is incredibly traditional. To this day it is, right? President Obama takes office January 20th, 2009. I would have to say my most favorite president for a lot of reasons, for a lot of accomplishments, and for what he did for the nation. Here we have him in thought. Again, this to me looks like an early picture. And here we have, once again, the president on the phone. Look at the intricate detail on the HMS Resolute desk. Dare I say it to any of you watching, whatever you think about President Obama, I think President Obama was the most presidential president we ever had, probably since Ronald Reagan. You can see where with the office the style comes out, right? And the curtains have changed, right? They're now an orangish, peachish color. Again, look at the desk. Amazing. That there's a desk of history, unique, intricate design, where so much has happened. But then again, the office itself can be very solitary. We've seen pictures with lots of people, and then we've seen pictures with the president alone. In observance of the fact that President Donald Trump is the current president of the United States, I show you one picture of President Trump in the Oval Office. As we can see, of course, then, some of the changes that have been made. It seems like an older design curtain has come back. We see a more orangish carpet sunburst style, and we see the brightness. All right, so I want to thank all of you for having watched this show, and for those of you who've watched the shows here on the Memories for the People channel, I want to thank you for watching. I wanted to get this show out to all of you, and those of you who are watching through our History USA Facebook page. Now, the official YouTube channel for the History USA Facebook page is Memories for the People. And my commitment to you on this channel is to bring you as much that I can bring you of memories from the 20th century, focus being 1945 to 1999, 2000. But we'll go here or there as we like to do on this channel. And I'm going to be bringing more on this channel to you. I'd like to encourage you to please stay tuned. We'll be talking more about 1980s culture, mores, social stuff. And yes, we'll be going back to some good old-fashioned American history too through History USA shows. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. See you later.